Welcome in, everybody, to the CFB Nation All-America podcast presented by FanDuel. I'm Bill Trocchi, senior editor at sportingnews.com, alongside Bill Bender, our national college football writer at sportingnews.com and the president of the Football Writers Association of America. We're coming to you live on our CFB Nation YouTube channel again. If you want to subscribe, just go over to youtube.com, search CFB Nation, and click subscribe. Bender, did anything happen over Thanksgiving weekend?
Yeah, it was the coaching carousel still going. I got to go in and update that again. Really, it's been a wild weekend. It was a fun rivalry weekend, and we had
was it calmer at the Bender house than it was at the Kiffin house? Can you break it down for us?
I think the Kiffin, he hijacked the entire weekend, and I know we're going to dig into that. And I can't remember a rivalry weekend. I would go way back. It was championship weekend when Les Miles reportedly was going to Michigan, and then he wasn't, and that was a big story ahead of the SEC championship game. And then he did his famous press conference. Said, I will be the coach at LSU. I am the coach at LSU. And now, all these years later, one that the circus definitely happened. One we saw coming and we've talked about for 3 weeks. But, some of us told you that if he left, he wouldn't coach Ole Miss in the playoff. And, those people were right.
Have a nice day. That's right. How Les Miles ended his press conference.
I remember that.
In Atlanta. So good stuff. Okay, well, yeah, we're going to break down Lane Kiffin, get your thoughts on that, which aren't necessarily in line with the national narrative a little bit. Some SEC hirings, discuss all of those that happened on a wild Sunday. The Michigan-Ohio State game, which you were at, Ohio State's losing streak to the rival came to an end. And then, of course, we're going to talk Miami-Notre Dame because tonight is a big night. We'll be back on this podcast at 6:50 tonight ahead of the 7 o'clock show on ESPN with Brian Driscoll to talk a little Miami-Notre Dame. This is a really, really, really big show. If Miami's ahead of Notre Dame, there's going to be a problem next Sunday, I think. And if Notre Dame's ahead of Miami, they can feel a little safer about things. But first, let's get into some Trocchi trivia. Here is your question. If Ohio State wins Saturday, it will be in the Rose Bowl for the second straight year. Who's the last team to win back-to-back Rose Bowls? So we'll revisit that at the end of the show. The last team to win back-to-back Rose Bowls. Ohio State will have the chance if they end up beating Indiana on Saturday night. So, all right, well, let's get into Kiffin. I know you have a lot of thoughts. Mike DeCourcy had a great column at Sporting News, got a lot of attention, just kind of ripping Kiffin for leaving a team in the middle of a playoff chase. You have told me you don't necessarily blame him.
Well, that part I don't. Like, leaving Ole Miss for LSU is not like, okay, yeah, LSU's won 3 national championships with 4 different coaches over this century. The only 2 programs have 3 different coaches win a national title this century are LSU and Ohio State. So if your goal is to win a national championship, I think you would have a better chance accomplishing that at LSU than you do Ole Miss. Now, the way he did it, no, I don't. I don't know if I don't agree with it, but I don't know how else you do it in 2025. That's kind of my point. Like, it was never going to be pretty if he left. Some of that's the calendar. Some of that's Ole Miss pressed him to make a decision like Keith Carter had to. Lane did make it about him and draw it out. I mean, could you imagine if Ole Miss would have made the SEC championship game? We would have had another week of this where we kind of knew he was going to LSU. So again, I'm not in the – people are saying, well, other jobs will be there. Well, you're not Lane Kiffin. Like, if this is the job he wants, it's not my business to tell somebody where he can and can't go. But there are consequences to that, and that's what they are. Everybody will say, well, he left this team. Yeah, he did. But college football is in a spot where, hey, you have players getting in the portal during the playoff run. So don't tell me, don't cry me a river about he's leaving the players when you have players who transfer during the playoff. That's fact. There's multiple quarterbacks that have done it. So I think that's part of the ugly business of this sport and the need to fix the calendar. Now, am I defending Lane Kiffin and like getting up on a hill, like ready to take a bullet for him? No, because I know that's Lane Kiffin and he moves around. But, other coaches, this will happen again until they fix the calendar. If somebody wants to leave, had Signetti left Indiana and took the Penn State job right now, would the same fervor be out there?
Yes.
Yeah, kind of. But then you'll just be like, it's Indiana. Who cares? It's Indiana. They've never been good. But I mean, that's where I'm at with this. Other coaches will end up doing this as well. They just won't be as easily hateable as Lane Kiffin. That's kind of my speech. But I read Mike's column, and that's kind of the that's the national narrative, right? And I don't need to always follow that. And I'm not doing it on purpose. It's just my feelings on Lane Kiffin is if I was him and I wanted a better job, I would do it. But some of us stay at Sporting News for 18 years and there aren't better jobs. So I'm always happy here. So I've never had that experience. But if I were to go to some other publication and everybody hated me, I'd be like, well, I mean, who are you to tell me what to do with my life? That's kind of where I'm at.
Isn't it a little different that you ask these kids to buy in, team first, and then you leave?
Yeah, but okay, then are we going to do the same thing when the quarterback transfers? That's kind of my point. Yeah, it's hard. Yes, that locker room message rings hollow. I get that. When you're in the middle of a season and team building and all that, and team building is tough. But I mean, the players are getting paid now. So again, it's until they fix the calendar as such where they make it possible. I think ideally it would have been softened if Lane Kiffin was allowed to coach Ole Miss, which he wanted to do, but it's just not possible in the SEC. And I don't know if a Big Ten school would allow to do that because I mean you saw the people at the airport and the greeting they gave Lane Kiffin on the way out. He would have to do that for 4 quarters at a home game, having people yell at him that. Right. Like that. So
are you gonna let the Red Sox manager manage the Red Sox and before he's going to the Yankees the next year? Like, no.
Right. No, like what's that manager gonna hear in Yankee Stadium for the 5 games of the ALDS? It's just I knew that was gonna happen. We had talked about it on here and in meetings, and if people are shocked by that, I can't help you, man. This is college football in the SEC. So I like I said, I understand if he wanted the LSU job, go take it. I mean, on the flip side, like people are like, well, he could get other jobs. Do you think LSU would have gone after him this year if Ole Miss was 7-5 and going to the Reliquis Bowl? No, he
maybe
doubtful. Not like
well,
like this.
You're right, but he's established himself as a really good coach. And my point out through this whole thing has been wait till you don't make the playoff. There will be a blue blood job.
But then your stock goes down. That's like Matt Campbell. Like when Iowa State was going,
so he gets $8 million instead of $12 million a year. I think he can survive. Like he's still a hot coach. He's still winning 10 games a year at Ole Miss. He missed the playoff last year with a 10-win season at Ole Miss, right? So his stock is going to remain high. I don't think a 7-5 season, if the coaching carousel spins like it is. I mean, coaching carousel has been very interesting. I'll tell you this stat. This is pre-Kalani Sitake, of course, because that's not official. There's been 15 Power 4 hires. I don't know. Did I slack this yesterday? 15 Power 4 hires the last 2 years. 5 last year, 10 this year. Lane is the only Power 4 to Power 4 move out of all 15 hires. Isn't that kind of wild?
That's good.
We're going into the group of 5. That's where everybody's looking right now. So Sitake would probably be the second out of 16. So I don't know. So I was listening to the Yahoo, whatever it's called, Inquirer, whatever podcast, Staples and Dellinger.
Oh, he's on with the Ross. That's right.
Staples and Dellinger, and I'm trying to remember the third. He's from Nashville. Anyway, I'll think of it in a second.
Godfrey?
Yes, Stephen Godfrey. So
Yeah.
the three of them, inside, whatever. It sounded very reliable. What do you make of this? They basically reported it that Saban was one of the guys Kiffin called, and Saban initially sat down with LSU people and told them to go after Lane. And then when Lane called Saban and asked him, what do you think? Saban told him, you should take the job. And this is a man who has an office in Tuscaloosa. What do you make of that?
Again, like, that doesn't bother me at all. Like, Lane coached for him. He's vouching for a guy that coached under him.
He fired him.
He did, but I mean, they obviously have I don't think this is oh my gosh, Nick Saban's infiltrating and trying to be a traitor. No, I just think he's back. He's retired now. He's out of the game, and you support guys that coached under you that you care about. Yeah, like, I think like Father Penny, wisdom from, he says there, like, if your mentor comes to you, like, for advice, you take it, and if LSU calls you, it's basically a reference check. I think our idea, that's that fan's idea of, you can't help another school. Well, Saban's, his job's done. Like, he's on game day now, and I mean,
he's definitely very much still involved in the sport, though.
But you don't think Kirby Smart calls him sometimes for advice?
I don't know. I just think it's funny. I'm not trying to suggest a scandal or anything like that. It's just kind of funny how the machinations work. Yeah, and like, he literally is, he's got an office in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. He still lives across the street from Kalen DeBoer. And he is a very influential figure, and his agent is still Jimmy Sexton. And he was stumping for Lane to coach Ole Miss throughout the playoff after he fired Lane in the same situation, which was extremely odd too. So,
yeah, I get it, though. I get why people would read too much. To me, it's like, yeah, I mean, if they want to take his office and tear his statue down in Tuscaloosa, they can. But I don't think that would be a smart move either. So,
no, I don't think it did anything to hurt Alabama necessarily. No. It's just like
they should be beating LSU anyway. Maybe he wants Lane there because he knows they can't beat Alabama. Who knows? With Nick Saban, you never know.
All right, let's jump real quick into your hirings. I want to get your thoughts on. I think it was. Well, we got your thoughts on Lane Kiffin going to LSU. Well, how do you think he's going to do? Is he going to win a national championship?
I mean, this gives him a better chance to do it. I mean, Ole Miss, for this dream season that they have, they're still a 7 seed. When LSU has a national championship machine, it's that Jacob Hester teams. He'll be very pleased that I refer to those as that. The Joe Burrow team, the Glenn Dorsey team in 07, the team they had in 03. I mean, he can acquire that kind of talent, and he'll have a chance to do it, and he'll have a chance to kind of write that big game reputation that has followed his career. I mean, we've always said, what's Lane Kiffin's signature win? What's he really done? He hasn't won anything. Well, this is his chance to prove it. It does remind me in some ways, and I know I'd refer a lot this way, but it's a little bit like Rich Rod when he went to Michigan, but not in that Rich Rod brought entire different scheme to Michigan. Lane Kiffin, scheme will match the talent. He'll provoke people. By the way, they do play at Tennessee and Ole Miss next year, so security guards will be, if you're a security guard in either area, you'll be at work that weekend.
Some overtime hours are going to be handed out that weekend.
He'll have like an entire team around him. So I think, he'll have his chances, and we get to see it. And if he flops, we're all going to say, I told you so. And if he doesn't, or 5 years from now, we might be saying, yeah, that's why he left Ole Miss.
All right, real quick, what do you think about Pete Golding getting the immediate job, not even interim, the immediate permanent head coach at Ole Miss? I was surprised. I think they wanted to get into the Summerall mix if Kiffin was gone, but Summerall was gone. We'll talk about him in a second. Is this a panic hire? Like, I feel like Mississippi State did this with Zach Arnett. They immediately made him. They went from interim to full-time coach, and it didn't work. When Mike Leach passed away unexpectedly, that was kind of a disaster. This was made in it seems like a 2-hour decision to hand the reins full-time to Pete Golding. I don't know. He's never been a head coach. 5 years of defensive coordinator at Alabama, then in 3 years at Ole Miss. So he's been a DC in the league for the last 8 years, seems personable and things like that. Were you surprised? And do you like this hire?
It's to, firm up playoff standing, I think, in some ways. I don't think that's the only reason why, but you see programs do this late in the cycle. They might just be like, hey, we wanted Summerall, or hey, we wanted to take a run at all those candidates we listed on the Lane Kiffin list, like a Glenn Schumann. Maybe that's little, because by the time they take a run at Glenn Schumann, Georgia's already in the playoff. Georgia may be in a deep playoff run. So I don't love it, but I understand it because teams have to do this sometimes, particularly the Power 4 schools, because way back in October, we were asking, it's ironic in some ways, why would Penn State do this now? And they still don't have a coach, because they're probably vetting candidates at that point. It's just that Penn State, most of those guys that they were trying to hire, signed extensions and got richer because of people getting fired.
That's true. Yeah, I don't know how to feel about it. I feel like it was rushed, and those usually don't work out. Then again, you had, the last few good hires out there, the Brent Keys of the world, had never been a head coach, and Marcus Freeman had never been a head coach, and they just got promoted from within. So who knows? We'll see about that one. Florida gets John Summerall. Summerall was 42-11 after 2 years at Troy and 2 years at Tulane, averaging over 10 wins a year. Made his conference championship game all 4 years as a head coach. He will finish out this season before going to Florida. He played at Kentucky. I saw somewhere this morning he wasn't interested in Kentucky. It wasn't like, oh, gee, I missed my shot. Stoops got fired. I think he knew there were better jobs out there, and I think Florida's a better job.
Yeah, Kentucky goes for Will Stein instead. So, there's a lot of movement, a lot of grades to be passed out. And I do think John Summerall is a hell of a football coach. You don't compile that kind of record at Troy and Tulane. And, I'm very excited, and I know we'll probably talk about it some tonight with BD on the evening podcast. But Tulane, North Texas, it kind of brings the whole Lane Kiffin discussion full circle, that those schools, group of 5 schools, can handle it like that. They can say, hey, Eric, we'll let you coach the rest of the playoff. Hell yeah, they're going to do that in North Texas, because they might get a playoff out of it. And same at Tulane. Yes, John, you can finish out what you started and then go to Florida. And I think that's what makes that game so exciting, is the Tulane memories. If they go to the playoff, they're not going to talk about how John Summerall left. They're going to say, man, we had that guy for a few years, and he got us to a playoff berth. Doesn't work that way when you're in the big boy conference with your rival in air quotes, which is what Ole Miss is wanting to call LSU. I get that it's a rivalry, but not, LSU is still going to win that one when it comes to getting the coach, and they did.
It's like G5. Some of the coaches embrace it and say, if you do well here, we'll get you to the Power 4.
Right.
And it's almost an advertisement. Well, if the coach does well, he can go to the Power 4 as well. And so there's no hard feelings. Going from one SEC school to another, that doesn't cut it. You don't want to send a message. If you do well at Ole Miss, you can go to LSU.
No. They have pride. Yeah,
that's absolutely not the message the Rebels are trying to get out there. So what do you think? Alex Golish was very close to Arkansas, apparently. His wife went there too, but he ends up at Auburn. He was at South Florida for 3 years, 23-15 bowl seasons, all 3 years. One at Florida this year, of course. He was the offensive coordinator at Tennessee the 2 years before he went to South Florida. Now he's a head coach in the SEC. Can he save Auburn from this kind of run of blah?
Well, I think he's got a great background. He learned under Heupel, and he'll do a good job there. as good as you can. And I think for Auburn, the expectations have changed. They can't be like Ole Miss, or they can't be like LSU right now because they had 5 straight losing seasons. They've kind of lost their way a little bit as a program. Golish, love the style on both sides. You know, the way they play offensively. Byron Brown, he made him a star. Byron Brown was one of the top quarterbacks in the country when it comes to total offense this year. Their defense is aggressive. Their linebacker play was outstanding. He'll bring some toughness there. And he's, by the way, went to high school in where? Ohio. He's a nearby Dublin guy. And,
boy. Here we go.
Born in Moscow. Interesting story, obviously. Born in Moscow, went to Dublin, Scioto up here. Was a GA at Ohio State and kind of worked his way up. Then the work he did with Josh Heupel at Tennessee was noticeable, and it's a good hire. All of these group of 5 guys, Summerall, Golish, Silverfield, and Eric Morris, all definitely have moved up, and that's a great, like you said, I think that's a selling point for those American Conference programs, that if you do well here, you'll get that high paying job in the big conference, and you can work with that and lean into that.
Golish was asked at his Auburn press conference how much he likes to play golf.
Well, I mean, if he was in Dublin, he was near Muirfield, so I mean, not bad.
I think it was a shot at Mr. Freeze there. I think so. He answered by saying, "I like football more than golf." So
that sounds about right.
That was a smart. Yeah, you mentioned Ryan Silverfield real quick. The final Arkansas, this final SEC hire, or is Stein officially at Kentucky?
I think it's rumored. I mean,
they were leaning in that way. Yeah. So Silverfield, 50-24 in 6 years at Memphis. This will be their 5th bowl season. Lost their final 3 games of the year. This year was disappointing, but ironically beat Arkansas 32-31. Now he's the head coach at Arkansas. Feels like a runner-up type situation for the Hogs. I don't know how happy the Hogs fans are, but he's their guy.
Well, I mean, early in the process, though, I remember a month ago or so, there was a report that Silverfield took the job, and then they quickly squashed it. So maybe he was their guy. Also, I mean, the one thing I like about him, it's a little bit like Summerall. Like, he hasn't done it for like 1 or 2 years. He's been solid there for a minute. And, you know, those teams at Memphis were good. They were in the college football playoff hunt, had a couple tough losses. And, you know, as far as that's probably who Arkansas is going to get, is one of the American Conference guys. There was rumors they took some heavy swings, some big swings at some other candidates like Edo. And while Ed Orgeron would have been entertaining in Arkansas, Silverfield's probably the better hire.
I would think so. I agree. So, all right. And let's get into the Michigan-Ohio State recap. You were there at Michigan over in the snow. The sideways snow, so to speak, to use Ryan Day's words. Another good game. Ohio State 27, Michigan 9. Michigan was up 6-0. And then Ohio State kind of took control from there. Ryan Day's 4-game losing streak to Michigan is over. Ohio State has won 16 straight games since that upset in the shoe by Michigan. They're number 1 in the country. It's nice to be a Buckeye over the weekend. No yeah buts anymore. Your takeaways from your afternoon in Ann Arbor.
No, you know, it was fun. A lot of national guys there, a lot of friends there. I drove up with Dave Briggs. Shout out Dave with the Toledo Blade. Not only a good rider, but drove us home in the snow. You know, I have a tradition where I'd go with Kyle Rowland also at the Blade. They were good friends. We got to hang out and watch football on Friday, and then went to the game. And of course, you know, I predicted 27-13, so I wasn't that far off. Had Michigan punched in the first touchdown there, then I probably would have got the score exactly right. I think Ryan Day coached the game he was supposed to coach last year. They got the best of both worlds. They get ahead with the passing game. They close the game with a 20-play drive. They end the game with class, you know. Although I will say, you know, you can say, oh, the Michigan, I don't care about all that stuff. But quick take, I mean, Brutus did, you know, put the script Ohio in the snow. And then, so you can't have it both ways. You can't say you can't touch our field. We can do this to yours. That's my quick take. But
Brutus, that was the play of the game, though. The Xing out the M. I mean, come on,
yeah, that stuff's good for the rivalry.
that was
Exactly. Like
amazing.
it gets you good pictures for your Facebook page or whatever.
Brutus,
And
Brutus was
all
my
in good fun.
MVP. That was
Yeah.
an MVP type move right there.
Well, Julian Sayin was the MVP. He played amazing in the you could have been felt after he threw that first pass, that pick, second pass.
Yes,
You could have said, "Oh, this California kid can't handle the cold and all
yes.
this." He said he's never really played in that. And he played great. He especially on third down. He didn't miss on third down. 7-7 on third down. A lot of conversions. Got the ball to his playmakers. But that's the thing with Ohio State and Michigan. We try to make controversies out of things that weren't controversies. I think the Jeremiah Smith play, people were trying to say that was a touchback. It might have been by the letter of the law, but I was like, they're not calling that right there. They're not going to call like a little bobble as a touchback.
Hey, when you can headbutt the official and not get ejected, they want the players to decide.
They're not gonna eject him for that. They probably should have. They could have ejected Brutus for getting on the field, but they didn't. Like, these are the things that could have happened that we'd be talking about.
There were two Ohio State players who tried to do the flag thing at the end, and then Ryan Day came over. I don't know if you saw the Instagram clip of that. And he was we're out of here.
No, and that's who this game was about to me. Like, in the press conference afterward, he said, there's a lot of things I could wanted to say the last couple of years. Well, say them. But I think that the statute of limitations on some of those things passed. Like, 2021 was 4 years ago. A couple things.
Is there a statute of limitations in the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry?
Well, because Harbaugh's he can take a shot at Harbaugh now, but Harbaugh's second place with the Chargers. Like, go ahead. Like, you know what I mean? Like, to me, it looked like that. But
I'm just kidding. I feel like people got long memories up there.
They do, but like, I think he handled it beautifully. Now he looks like a guy that, hey, he prevented another brawl from happening. Yeah. He got you could hear how fired up the Ohio State guys were in the tunnel coming in from the press conference. He's grown. He one of our comments, Stymie in our comments. Yeah, he went after Lou Holtz in a post game. We don't remember the Notre Dame game. We remember that. And I think he came the way that the tone was, hey, maybe we're above all that. Like, we should have won the game. We went out. It was kind of a business trip feel. And now they got, it's crazy that was the appetizer for what's it's definitely going to be a better game with Indiana, Ohio State, and the challenge that they have facing a 12-0 Indiana team. But I'm happy for Ryan Day, because he basically took 4 years of crap. And he did, like I said, he coached the game Saturday that he should have coached last year. And this losing streak would have been done a year ago. Now, I think the pressure falls on Michigan, Bill, and Sharon Moore. And, well, how are you going to have a 5-star quarterback throw for 61 yards? And what is this offense you're running? Granted, they were beat up at running back and offensive line, and they need to find some receivers in the portal. But you're paying all that money for 61 yards passing in the biggest game of the year. You're going to need to do better than that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, before we get out of here, I want to talk a little Miami Notre Dame. We got to set the stage for tonight. Of course, this is the final Tuesday show of the college football rankings, and then we have the championship games on Saturday, and then Selection Sunday at noon on ESPN on Sunday, and that obviously will be the final tally. But tonight is obviously crucial because a lot of the bubble teams aren't playing this weekend. And so if Miami is ahead of Notre Dame tonight, they will likely be ahead of them on Sunday, and vice versa. If Notre Dame stays ahead of Miami tonight, then they will still be ahead. Now, one bubble team that is in action is Alabama. Another one is BYU, but I think it's pretty consensus if BYU loses, they're out. If Alabama loses, they might be out. We don't know. Oklahoma is another team that did not look good at all on Saturday. They're a bubble team hanging out there at 8, but they got the win. LSU had a defensive breakdown, and Oklahoma won that one. So Oklahoma has figured out a way to win. I think they're very safe, but, the other bubble teams seem to really play well. Texas is trying to sneak in to the conversation. They're a bubble team. Notre Dame played well. They're a bubble team. Miami played well. They're a bubble team. For the sake of this next 2 minutes, let's talk a little Miami Notre Dame. I think you told me yesterday Miami probably has the better resume. Notre Dame probably has the better team.
And I did you'll be reading all about that here shortly. Like, Miami's argument is really good. Like, they, if you look at the combined record of their opponents, Notre Dame's is 75-68, and Navy and Army haven't played. Miami's is 75-69. When I calculated that last night, I was like, of course, the ACC common opponents. They both, the way I look at that, they both kicked all of their asses. There's nothing to draw from like a 15-point differential in them beating up on Syracuse and Pitt. To me, that does very little for me. The head-to-head should matter,
and it does. The NC State scores were similar.
Yeah,
there was one other.
Here's the stat on that. When
there's four
opponents that they played. Miami outscored those opponents 159-31. Notre Dame outscored those opponents 192-49.
Yeah.
It's like a 15-point difference. If you're making your judgment based on that 15-point difference, or the 9-point that Pitt or Miami beat Pitt by 10 more points or 9 more points, it just says they're about the same.
Yeah.
Notre Dame's losses are better. I mean, if that's a stat that I kind of use that last, they lost to A&M by a point, and Miami on the road, and Miami was a disaster at home against Louisville and lost in overtime to SMU. Those teams, SMU and Louisville, both 8-win teams. But that statement I said, like, we can go through all the intricacies of the argument. It comes down to this for me. Notre Dame's done nothing to drop. You've had them in the top 10 from the start. What are you going to do, and how are you going to justify putting them behind somebody that you've had in front of the whole time, and they've dominated the last month? I think Notre Dame has the look of a team that could actually win the national title. I don't feel that way about Miami if they got in the playoff, and that's why I'm saying I think they're the better team. They have the better offense. Miami has the better defense. It's a tough one.
One thing I think that's in Notre Dame's favor, and I don't know that it's necessarily part of the evaluation, but they haven't really had a stinkola game. Their worst game of the season was at Boston College, where they won 25-10. They had a pick six reversed on review in the fourth quarter that would have made it 32-10, whatever. They outgained BC by 170 yards, and that was clearly their worst game of the season. So Miami had two that they kind of underperformed. Even the SMU game, I know it was close in overtime and stuff, but they just didn't play well. Notre Dame has played pretty well, even in their losses. They played pretty well every game. So the consistency, I think, is in their favor. Obviously, having 10 wins in a row, all by double digits, as they're quick to tell you, because they beat USC by 10, is a point in their favor. There's no doubt about it. I mean, to be a consistent team. And I think I agree with you. I think I heard on another podcast, can't remember, Vegas had it anywhere between 4.5 and 6 points.
Yep.
On a neutral field tomorrow. Notre Dame would be favored. Notre Dame was favored in Miami by 2.5 and lost by 3.
So Father's asking, would you drop Oklahoma? I would not. I think they're fine. And if I'm a Miami fan, I'm actually, I've been watching that. I told you I was watching that Ken Burns American Revolution documentary. I think you need to point your cannon at the other direction. You need to, if you're Miami, you got to stop pointing your cannon at Notre Dame. You're going to lose that argument. Despite the head-to-head and despite that you have that trump card, I think they lose that argument. I would point it at Alabama instead and say, if Alabama were to lose to Georgia by 2 touchdowns and get just beat up in the SEC championship game, you could say, hey, they've lost 3 games. They haven't really. You tell me who's looked better in the last month between Alabama and Notre Dame, and I can tell you what the answer to that is. who's looked like the better football team. And I would people that want to drop OU. I mean, no, Oklahoma got to 10. That Alabama win helps, and they've taken care of their business, and their losses aren't terrible, right? Like they lost to Ole Miss. It's a home loss, and they did lose to Texas bad. But I'm one of the people that thinks Texas should be in, and we've gone through that argument. That I thought Steve Sarkisian had the best playoff case of all, and I've been saying it for a month. Had they played Minnesota instead of Ohio State, they would be in the field too. And I know BD and I went back and forth on that, but I 100% believe that.
See, I feel like I've always said I thought even though Ohio State lost 14-7 is a check mark in their favor because
I don't. I think it's
the best anybody did against Ohio State all season. I think the negatives are the Kentucky win, the Mississippi State win, the games where they just looked crappy. Even the San Jose State maybe or somebody, Arch looked terrible. But they won because it was an easy game. They did not look like a great team. That's why they dropped so far in the AP poll at the beginning of the year. Then they started to play better, but then they had, wins against lower division SEC teams that were too close for comfort. And then, of course, they played great against A&M. So they're hard to figure out.
Right. It's Texas. They have a Longhorn on their helmet. If they had 10 wins, they would be in. I mean, I don't care about any of those games. They would have them in over Miami, no question. They would have them in over Oklahoma because they have a head-to-head. That would be an argument. They would have them in over – they just beat Texas A&M. The SEC knows how to publicize these things. There is no question to me had Texas played Minnesota over Ohio State that they'd be in the playoff. It's because until we let a 9-win team in, proved me wrong. Like, I mean, yeah, the games have the Florida loss is bad, but it's Texas. They would put them in.
So what happens if Alabama is the last team in tonight, right? 10th is the last at large or whatever. Right. And Texas is the next team out. And Bama loses to Georgia.
I mean,
does Texas bump out Alabama? That's my last topic. I say yes, Alabama will drop if they lose. You're not.
I don't think they will. No, I don't think they're going to penalize. I don't think Sankey will allow it. Like the going to the SEC championship game has to matter. And I know we live in this weird tiebreaker thing where what do I say every week? Our listeners have heard this 100 times. Let's just lose this conference championship week. We don't need it. We don't need the more confusion. We don't need 5-loss Duke in Charlotte. We don't need Alabama debating whether they should. If that's the case, and I was killing DeBoer, I'd be like, all right, we're not playing. We're good. There's people talking about Indiana and Ohio State. Should they sit their starters?
That's it. You can't play a non-consequential game. They count. They all count. It counts. You can't just go into the game and be like, well, if it lose, it doesn't matter. So let's play. Like that's like USC's view of the Notre Dame series. Like we'll play as long as it doesn't count and hurt us. As long as we have an auto bid in the Big Ten, we'll play it. But if it actually matters to us, we're not going to play.
NFL teams do it all the time.
That's soft.
NFL teams do it every week 17 and 18. I mean, and that's I would just get rid of them. I know there has to be consequences and somebody has like BYU's the one Power 4 team. Virginia, they have something to play for. I understand that. Ohio State, Indiana's 4. Who's number 1 and who's number 4?
Who gets to go to the Rose Bowl?
Yeah. And I'm still trying to think who won the second one. I think I have the answer to that. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely an interesting thing that we're going to debate about all week. But
it's going to be wild tonight.
It's going to be a lot of fun. And I know when we have Brian in here, we're going to have to recycle some of these arguments. But I want Notre Dame. I think Oklahoma, Notre Dame's an interesting topic for Father. I don't know what I said wrong, but some of that might be where they end up playing. Is it going to be in Norman or is it going to be in South Bend? But I do think Notre Dame and Oklahoma will be 8 and 9, and maybe there is that. To his point, now that I'm thinking about it, Maybe that's the insurance policy for the committee. Hey, we'll just bump Notre Dame ahead of Oklahoma. Now we don't have to. Now we don't have to do that. Notre Dame, Miami. If they did,
I mean, Oklahoma was kind of lucky to beat Alabama. They were kind of lucky to beat Tennessee, and they were kind of lucky to beat LSU. Like they've not, Mateer has not played well. Their defense has been unbelievable. How long can you live on a defense like that? We'll find out, I guess. So
we could see I want to see Notre Dame and Oklahoma in the first round. Honestly, I think it'd be a fun game.
Yeah,
I do think the Irish would win.
It would be very fun. So, all right, let's get back to the Troche trivia, and then we'll get out of here. And remember, we'll be back tonight at 6:50 here at the CFB Nation All-America, the YouTube channel, and then of course we'll have it on Spotify and Apple too, discussing as the rankings come out. It's going to be very exciting, very big night. So Troche trivia, and then we'll get out of here. If Ohio State wins Saturday, they'll be in the Rose Bowl for the second straight year. Who's the last team to win back-to-back Rose Bowls?
I feel like it's not the traditional Big Ten teams. It's one of two. It's either Texas or USC, and I can't decide which one it is. Texas did it with Vince Young. Well, it wasn't the Rose Bowl, the BCS championship game at the Rose Bowl. I'm going to say USC. It's the easiest answer. They won a bunch in a row.
USC from 2007 to 2009. They won 3.
Hold on, don't tell me who they are.
What do you
mean? One of them was Illinois. That was probably set. Michigan, Illinois. Hold on.
The 07, 08, 09?
Yeah, I'm trying to don't tell me who they are. I was like telling you who they beat. They beat So 2007 Rose Bowl, is that from the 6th season?
Yeah.
That's Michigan.
Yes.
They crushed them. Then the next year, they played Illinois.
Yes.
Then the next year, they played, oh my gosh, don't tell me. Penn State.
You are correct.
Yep. They crushed all. That was So, that was that run.
They won by 14, 32, and 14.
There were some polls among some of my friends about what the point total would be when they played Illinois. We knew it was going to be a high one.
It was. So last time Ohio State won back-to-back?
Hold on. That's probably, they didn't go for a very long time.
Trick question. Never.
Well, there you go. There you go. They hadn't gone in a while. I knew it was a big deal when they beat Oregon. It was a big deal last year, and a big deal the first time they beat Oregon with Jim Tressel. So a lot of that, as they will tell you, a lot of that is because they play in a lot of BCS championship games instead of the Rose Bowl, those kind of things, which they did.
They got a chance to make some school history this year if they can win on Saturday. So, all right. Well, thank you to everyone for listening to the CFB Nation All-America podcast presented by FanDuel on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank you to Irish Breakdown, your source for Notre Dame football information. Enjoy the rest of your day. And remember, come on back tonight, 6:50. We'll be here with Irish Breakdown's Brian Driscoll.